I come to the floor to follow the gentlelady from North Carolina to address the issue of the bailout. As she started her talks with regard deal or no deal, I'll just talk about 30 seconds on that. There was talk all in the media that there was a deal. We heard from Senator Dodd and chairman of our committee and others, leaders on the other side of the aisle yesterday, that there was a deal. Unfortunately, the facts of the matter was there may have been a deal between themselves and the White House. There was no deal, obviously, to actually bring the bill to the floor, or at 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night right now, we would have seen the Speaker of the House bring the bill to the floor. It has not, and so that is evidence of the fact that there never was a deal. But we do know that the fact is that we have a serious problem in this country, a problem that must be addressed now, a problem which requires both sides coming together to try to find the solution to that. And as this previous speaker said, there are alternative solutions on the table. Solutions that economists and economists and business schools across the country have come behind and said can be the credible solution, and one which would not put the taxpayers of the country on the hook. I would suggest that one way of coming to a solution is to decide that we are not going to go back to those same people who helped bring us to this problem in the first place. You know, one of the underlying problems that brought us to this situation is the fact that there was easy money in the economy for too long a period of time. From 2001 and 2004, interest rates slid from 6% all the way down to 1% of the Fed's fund rate. There was expression accused of the Greenspan put, if you will, as far as trying to boost the economy in Wall Street all during that time. Then that was followed by a switch turnaround from 2004 to 2007, where the interest rates shot back up from 1% up to 5.25%. And let me suggest to you that those higher interest rates have been reflected in the housing market today and will be potentially affected due to a lag time to other sections of the economy later. And that is another reason why we should not engage and support a measure, as has been proposed by the White House on the other side of the aisle, of spending $700 billion or anywhere near that amount of money that would put the taxpayers on hook, because we can anticipate future problems due to that tightening up of the credit market by the Fed. Now, another area where we should not go back to the same people who helped bring us to this problem are those very same people who helped exacerbate the problem by their misregulation of the GSEs. The GSEs, what are they? They're your Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Those entities that supply the credit for about half of the mortgages in this country were allowed to grow out of control and to grow too large to fail, and to grow to such an extent that there was systemic risk in this country and in the marketplaces that brought us to where we are today with the crisis we are facing. Now, this is something that was not unpredicted or not unforeseen. Our own administration came to this Congress in 2002, 2003, and 4 and 5 in their budget requests and elsewhere, making pleas to this Congress to try to put in some regulation. World-class regulators is what they called them. Secretary Snow came to the Financial Services Committee and made that request and said that we should have regulation. However, we were thwarted on every front. The current chairman of the Financial Services Committee was one who stood and said we should not do so. I went back and looked into what the record of this was, and in 2005 to see what my position was on it, what I said on it. And at that time in 2005, the gentleman from California, Mr. Royce, suggested that we could begin the process of reining in the GSEs so to avoid systemic risk in this country with regard to them and avoid a future crisis. And he put an amendment to the bill to provide and prevent systemic risk. I came down to the floor to support the gentleman from California, Mr. Royce, in his amendment, and at that time I said that I rise in support of this legislation which strengthens the language with regard to portfolios and GSEs. I indicated that GSEs claim that they are shock absorbers, and this line is somewhat ironic today, that GSEs claimed back in 2005 that they are shock absorbers to the systems. And one of the main reasons that Fannie and Freddie claim they should not have portfolio limits is that they provide a stable means of support for the residential financial market in times of crisis. How ironic that they were claiming that they could be of help in the time of crisis, when in fact they were what have now brought us to the time of crisis. Back in 2005, Fannie CEO Dan Mudd testified, quote, "Our mortgage portfolios allow us to play a shock-absorbing function for the finance system during times of potential difficulty." Well, there's no function that they're serving now except that they are causing the difficulty. This week they said Freddie's president Eugene McQuaid was quoted as saying that the enterprises that provide a source of stability to the market mortgage finance system. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I would just like to conclude by saying that the problems that with the GSEs brought us to today was because, although we were warned by the administration and many people from this side of the aisle, that it was a failure to implement those regulations in a timely basis. And we'll discuss this in further at a later date. I thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. DeFazio of Oregon, Mr. Burton of Indiana. For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Mr. Speaker, to request that I be allowed to take my 5 minutes out of order.